I want to acknowledge another state that's just taken a big step to get rid of the wicked practice of abortion that's been taking place in this country. Missouri put in place a ban that would cut off any abortions past the 8th week of pregnancy. Now, it is my belief, and many of those in the faith, that life begins at conception. So that's what I would hope for ultimately. But we'll take this for now. We'll see where this goes. If a medical personnel is found committing an abortion, beyond that point, they can face anywhere from 5 to 15 years in prison time as a felony. I would also go further than that. I know in some states, first-degree murder, premeditated murder could carry that type of a sentence, maybe like 10 to 15 years. But I would even go further than that when you're talking about premeditated murder, and especially when you're talking about an innocent unborn child. But no penalties would be in place for the women, for the mothers, for the women who are pregnant, and I agree with that. Go after the people in the industry, but not after the regular individuals. I agree with that approach. So I feel this is wonderful news. I am pro-life all the way. That's just not unborn children. I'm pro-life when it comes to not allowing these like mercy assisted suicide bills for elderly individuals, or for people who have diseases that were supposed to be diagnosed as fatal, and giving them only so much time to live. I think we need to make other reforms in this country, but the killing of innocent blood, the shed of innocent blood, unborn child who didn't do anything to anyone, who didn't even decide to be here, is absolutely an abomination. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a conservative, but I do have views on issues, and my issues first and foremost are going to be biblically based. So I'm definitely 100% unapologetically pro-life. And for the party that's supposed to be a quote-unquote conservative biblical party, Republicans haven't done too much, particularly for our people. But I will have to congratulate them on this. This, at least, they have been able to do, and it's been happening within the states, not in the federal members. Now, I know a lot of you out here, particularly for those of you who may be opposed, anti-abortion, who oppose pro-life, you feel like that all of a sudden you see a lot of these bills coming down the pipeline. Well, this is nothing new. This has been going on for at least about a decade or so. Okay, there were even attempts by many individuals and state legislators to get these things passed out of one of their houses, one of their chambers in the state legislature, even in the time of Barack Obama. Maybe this wasn't on your radar, or just didn't get the coverage in the mainstream media, but this is nothing new. I mean, in fact, even before I was born, when Roe versus Wade came into the picture, there were people who were even trying to fight the Supreme Court decision back then, since 1973. So this is nothing new. This is the long view. This is a long-term strategy. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you care about protecting all life as I do, if all life is supposed to be sacred and valuable and precious, and that thou shalt not kill, specifically thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not shed innocent blood, then that's one of the 10 commandments. Then you're never going to give this up. Okay, this is going to be a part of you as long as you have breath in your lungs. And now there's been maybe like a greater organization or sense of urgency recently, because number one, a lot of these state houses, whether one or both, in the instances where states have a bicameral legislator, and only the Commonwealth of Virginia is not in that situation. A lot of these state houses are either one house or both houses Republican majority, and substantially Republican majority, because in these local races, Democrats on the left have got decimated. And even in the time of Obama, Republicans have had about 30, 32 of the governorships in various states as well. So you have the juice in the state legislature. You have the juice even in the governorship. And with the majorities in the state legislators, even in the instance of, say, if you have a Democrat governor who potentially could veto what the state legislature has done, in certain instances, you have enough majorities in the state houses and the state legislature to overturn a gubernatorial veto. So even if you have an opposing governor that tries to stop you, you can overturn that gubernatorial veto. So it still will go through, you know. And of course, yeah, you have 45 in office. Now let me say, when 45 announced his candidacy and when he said that he was pro-life, I was trying to remember at what point in time he's been pro-life, because he's flipped and flopped on so many issues. The only issue I think he's been consistent on is that in his entire adult life has been trade. Okay, but everything else, you know, or so many of the other issues, he has flipped and flopped and went back and forth. I mean, maybe Iraq, maybe he never really supported that, you know, but I just never really trusted him on any issues, and that's why I was really kind of baffled that the so-called conservatives and the so-called evangelicals, you know, in these Sunday churches, the Sunday Christians, how they ever could believe that he would really advocate their issues. And he has abandoned them on some issues, like for instance with bump stocks and the Second Amendment, you know. But he's been a bit more consistent. I will say he has been a bit more consistent than I thought that he would be. I give him that. Although he was going to back down on immigration, and in his base, you know, was threatening to abandon him and talk about he was going to be a one-term president. So then the whole, you know, the wall and the government shutdown situation, you know. But, you know, 45 definitely is a big part of this, as far as, like, you know, you can smell the blood in the water, you know, you can feel the sense of urgency. And even though I felt that there should have been more investigation into the accusations of Brett Kavanaugh, and I'm not so convinced if Brett Kavanaugh is really going to be that much of a conservative constitutional justice, you know, when you look at his background. So let's wait and see. And then you also got to look at John Roberts, because John Roberts has definitely had some very questionable decisions recently for someone who was nominated by Bush and is supposed to be considered a conservative or Republican justice or constitutional justice. So by no means, when you look at the Supreme Court and the current makeup of the Supreme Court, should this be considered to be any kind of home run or slam dunk or anything like that? Because there's a number of these judges, you know, that are supposed to be considered to be constitutionalists or conservative or Republicans that I'm not that confident about. So this will be a bit of a litmus test in this pro-life showdown that has been pushed and is likely going to be set, you know, if they take up the case, which I would think they would most likely take up the case with the challenges that are mounting to try to stop this. So, you know, if you've been paying attention to this, and I'm kind of a political junkie, so I pay attention to what's been going on, you know, and especially if you are really supposed to be someone who's really pro-life, you know, or pro-choice, whatever side of the issue you fall on, this shouldn't have been a surprise to you if you've been paying attention and if you've been doing your homework. This is nothing new. It's just now everything is falling in line and the momentum is now in place, you know, and we can see the finish line and we're pushing through. Now, I also have to say, like I stated in my other video, specifically talking about Alabama and Georgia, the Gentiles that have been pushing these bills, primarily Gentiles, I don't trust their intentions. I don't trust their motives. I know certain demographics, even in these other countries, and birth rates and things like that. I know those things haven't been going well for them, which is potentially a divine judgment when you look at everything that they've done in trying to limit our numbers, whether it's been here or even in other countries abroad across the world. So I know that they're maybe not necessarily doing it for the right reason, but I like the fact that it's being done nonetheless. And you got to think about this, okay? The Most High can have these things work out to His will. Who's to say that the Most High hasn't sent a spirit to these Gentiles that are in office, particularly in the Republican Party? With all of the changing demographics and birth rates and opioids and fentanyl and stuff like that that's been going on, and has placed a spirit inside of them that has really made them push for this. It may have been the same type of a spirit, as I alluded to earlier, that was placed inside of them when they went out and voted for 45 as their nominee, and then later on as their president. Okay, so I'm not really too concerned about, even though I pay attention to these things and the potential prophetic signs in certain implications, I'm not too concerned about certain things that happen, because at the end of the day, I know that the Most High is in charge. I know that we're on His time and nobody else's time. Even the evil that is done, we're on His time. Even for the evildoers out there. And He's in control. And He has the master plan. And at the end of the day, if you're talking about protecting innocent life and the unborn and just life in general, I could definitely get behind that. Now, as a people, whether that's the world or specifically America or other countries or specifically our community, whether you're talking about ADOS or the diaspora at large, there's definitely things that we need to do better as far as living as Christ instructed us, keeping the commandments, loving on our people, taking care of our people, taking care of each other, and not having this foolishness going around that's been going around for far too long in our communities. Men being a covering of your women, men being a covering of your children, of your household, of your community, of everybody that you're responsible for. That's stewardship, okay? There's definitely things that we need to do as a people, but there's definitely things that all people, because the Most High will want everyone to be saved. Salvation is for everyone, including the Gentiles. We need to do better as human beings. We need to do better as the children of the Most High, and we need to do better specifically ourselves as a people. So I know there's going to be some people who disagree with this, especially the people who's pushing this stuff through. But you need to just take stock of your life, as I've been doing, of how I'm living now, and issues and transgressions and mistakes I've even made in the past, and don't get too caught up into your feelings about this. You need to think about what the possible master plan and what the big picture could be, and at the end of the day, it's a good thing. And if this forces people, because you know how some people have been like gaming the system and manipulating the system, there are those out there who've been doing it. If this goes through all the way, and if Roe versus Wade either goes down, or at least if the Supreme Court allows for these laws to stand, for the most part, then if this forces certain people to change their behavior, just like when people have been talking about what they're going to do with welfare and food stamps and public housing and stuff like that, I know there's a lot of issues going on, but just like Brother Malcolm talked about, I disagree with Brother Malcolm on some theological issues, but I definitely agree with Brother Malcolm when he talked about he didn't want our people being on welfare. He didn't want our people to be on food stamps. He didn't want our people to be dependable on the white man and on these Gentiles. He didn't want our people to be dependent upon America. Because how does that work in your best interest? How are you going to be taken care of when you're being taken care of supposedly by your enemy, by your potentate, by your oppressor, by the people that are keeping you in captivity? I mean, that's Stockholm Syndrome. You're going to cleave to your enemy and hope that they're going to take care of you. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's not intelligence, okay? That makes no sense. That's stupidity. What we need to do as a people, we need to do better by each other, and we need to take care of each other. That's what we need to do. Don't worry about what the rest of America is doing for the most part. We need to worry about what we're doing for ourselves and what we're doing for the Lord. That's what we need to worry about, okay? And then we can take care of all these problems that we're having in our community. And if the rest of America just falls, and if they don't want to keep no commandments, and if they don't want to come under the grace of Christ, then that's fine, okay? You let them do that after they've gotten their warning. But we need to be concerned about what we need to do for our people. I'm not necessarily concerned about what America does, because when you look at the history of America, from the founding all the way down to now, okay, America's kind of shown you already the track record of what she's gonna do. So we shouldn't be surprised by anything America has done. America's had 400 years plus since the colonial days, showing you what it's all about. I don't know why you would expect anything differently. Okay, this is our Holocaust. This is our time of captivity. Now, the ways to remedy that are in the book, and how we live our lives, and how we serve the Lord, okay? That's what it comes down to. So, don't get too caught up in your emotions and your feelings on this. Just pay attention to what's going on. You know, I would urge everyone to read and study on your own. Get in a fellowship group or a Bible study group. Keep the Sabbath, keep the commandments. You know, if you lack some understanding, have someone who can break this thing down to you, you know, without distorting or misinterpreting scripture. You know, and look for the signs and read between the lines. I'm not too worried about what the Gentiles do, you know, because the good Gentiles who are doing the right thing, they're going to be taken care of. But the bad Gentiles that are doing the wrong thing, they're going to get theirs. So I'm not too worried about what the Gentiles are doing. Okay? We need to focus on what we're doing as a people and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So if we pass before that time comes, we can make the first resurrection, you know. Or if we don't pass when that time comes, we'll be in a position to make moves to put ourselves in a place that we need to be, while all the rest of the craziness is going down in the world. Okay? So I'm going to consider this to be the pro-life watch, the okay, well, the screen went blank, but I'm going to keep going. The anti-infanticide protection, and the prevention of basically what is child sacrifice. I mean, abortion is basically almost like an element of Baal worship, or Baal, or Moloch, or who, you know, basically it's the Hasatan at the end of the day. You know, all these false gods, basically just the Hasatan or other fallen angels, demons, basically. So that's what it's like. Abortion is like child sacrifice. It is evil and wicked and immoral, and it's an abomination. It's an absolute transgression. So let's hold on to this. Keep watching for the signs and the signals. Stay vigilant. We need to take care of each other as a people. We need to take care of each other as human beings, period. You know, and we need to place ourselves in a position to be where we need to be until Christ returns. All right. So we'll stay updated on this pro-life watch, and hopefully when we get that showdown in the Supreme Court, because eventually that's probably where it's going. This is what the goal was for. You know, we'll be vindicated. We'll get the right outcome. You know, and look, for all the people out there, look, I've been abstinent. You know, unfortunately, I haven't been able to keep my purity in all of my life, but I've been abstinent for the past, what has it been, like about 15, 16 years now. Okay. So I know it's hard. You know, you have to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I've always been perfect. You know, there's a lot of temptation out there. You know, but I've maintained my abstinence for the past 16 years. Okay? Even though I didn't always do so. So I would encourage all of you that are not married to do the same. Okay? Because if you're not spreading your legs, if you're not spreading other women's legs, and if you're not married to anyone, this shouldn't be an issue for you. You know, if you're not whoremongering or playing the whore or the harlot, fornicating or committing adultery, you know, and for those who are married, if you're sleeping around with someone that you're not married with, that's adultery. So you don't have to worry about getting pregnant by somebody else if you're only sleeping with your spouse. That's the way it's supposed to be. If we were keeping the commandments and doing what we were supposed to be doing, none of this would be an issue. See, for me, this is an issue because now it wasn't always that way, even when I was raised in the Sunday church. But now that I know the true faith, now that I've come into truth of the way, and I am a Torah keeper and a commandment keeper, and I follow Christ as I've tried to do always, this isn't an issue for me personally. And this wouldn't be an issue for you if you were living that way. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying you're not going to make mistakes, but you should try to the best of your ability. We're all human beings. None of us is perfect, but that's all you can do. All you can do is do your best with sincerity, with love and fear for the Most High. Okay? That's all you can do. Just try to do your best. You know, whatever you got to do, prayer and meditation, study and fellowship, reading and getting into the scriptures. You know, if you need a fast, whatever you need to do, okay? Do your best. Do your best to keep yourself from transgression. Alright? And if we were doing that, everyone across the world, I don't care, Gentile or otherwise, if we were doing that across the world, this wouldn't be an issue. The people who were really kicking and screaming the most were the people who had that rebellious spirit and maybe a reprobate spirit, or people who just don't want to keep the commandments, people who don't want to obey, people who want to go do what they want to do, and they don't want to care about thus saith the Most High. Alright? So, till the next time, when I get my next video out, hopefully my screen won't go out again. You know, they probably didn't want me putting this message out, you know, because we know a lot of these individuals love baby killing, you know, but that's fine. So I'll see you next time with the next video. Shalom, everyone.